Hello friends, this is Sanjay. In this video, we will discuss about learning and pedagogy. That is, how children think and learn. How and why children fail to achieve success in school performance. This is part of the Karnataka TET CDP syllabus for paper 1 and paper 2. In this series, we are covering only those topics which are important from your exam point of view. We'll start with understanding why is thinking important in pedagogy. Then we'll look at the reasons and the types of thinking. Thinking and learning, what is the connection between them? Culture and learning, what is the connection between them? What is creative thinking? And how can we develop and encourage thinking? Then we'll look at why children fail in school and how can we help children succeed in school. We'll then talk about Thorndike's Connectionism and the laws of learning. And we'll end this video with some sample questions from previous question papers. So let's get started. Why is thinking important in pedagogy? Before we answer this question, let's do a quick recap of what we learned about learning in one of our previous videos. So learning is the process of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, behavior, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences. So how do we acquire all of these? Think of it like how you eat food. So when you eat food, the food gets digested in your body, and the result of this digestion is energy and growth. Similarly, data, information, and experiences are like food, and the process of digesting this food is nothing but thinking, and the result of this thinking is new knowledge, skills, behaviors, attitudes, values, and preferences, and these are nothing but learning. In one of the previous videos, we spoke about Piaget's stages of cognitive development and how a person's cognitive abilities develop and evolve throughout a person's lifetime in distinct stages such as sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational stages. Similarly, thinking also develops and evolves throughout a person's lifetime, because as the person grows older, the person already has some experience, already has some information, has already learned a lot of things. So whenever the person gets new data, information, or experiences, he can use his existing learning in the thinking process, and the new knowledge or skills, behaviors, attitudes keep on developing and evolving. So as a person grows, develops, and evolves throughout his lifetime, the thinking process also develops and evolves throughout a person's lifetime. Next, let us talk about some of the reasons of thinking and the various types of thinking. So now here I have given a list of reasons why we think, and these reasons can be the processes of thinking as well. Manifestation means appearance. When a problem or a situation or an object presents itself before you, appears before you, it is called manifestation. When a child sees an elephant for the first time, you can say that an elephant is manifested before the child. So this manifestation or appearance of an elephant can be a reason for thinking. And the child is absorbing some information about the elephant through his eyes, through his nose, through his ears. So this manifestation is a process of thinking as well. And when the child goes to a zoo for the first time, then the child is experiencing the zoo, the sights, the sounds, the smell of the zoo. So this experience can be a reason for thinking and a process for thinking as well. Similarly, when a child is trying to imitate somebody, the child has to observe that person and then try to reproduce that actions or that behavior and imitate the person. So this imitation can be a reason for thinking, and the process of imitation, as I said, is a process as well. And when the child goes to a school for the first time, then the child is understanding what the school is all about, what happens in a school, what teachers do, what is expected out of them. So the child is understanding the concept or the idea of a school. So this concept is a reason for thinking, and what is happening in the process of understanding this concept is also a process of thinking. When you are imagining something, it is a reason for thinking, and imagination is a thinking process as well. Similarly, when you are interested in something, when you desire something, when you are motivated by something, it is a reason for thinking and it is a thinking process. Similarly, when you have to solve a problem or a situation, then you are using some logic and reasoning. So that again is a reason for thoughts, and the usage of logic and reasoning is a thinking process. Next, let us talk about the types of thinking. I've listed down 6 different types of thinking here. But at any given point of time, you can use any combination of these 6 different types. For example, you can be using convergent thinking. At the same time, you can also be using reflective thinking and critical thinking as well. So you can use any combination of these. Convergent thinking means everybody is thinking in the same way. For example, in your classroom, if you teach the students a standard process or a standard formula for calculating the area of a triangle, then you give them all some different triangles and ask them to calculate the area, they will all try to use the same steps and the same process that you taught them. So everybody is thinking in the same way. That is convergent thinking. In the same classroom, you give the children this star polygon or this star shape and ask them to calculate the area of the star. You have not taught them the formula to be used here. So every child will look at the same problem and they will try to arrive at a solution in a different way. They will look at the problem in a different way. For example, some children might see that there are 5 triangles and there is one pentagon in the middle, which means that if they calculate the area of this 5 triangle and the pentagon and add them up, they will get the area of this star. Some children may look at it in a different way. They might see that there is one triangle in the middle and there are 3 small triangles. So if they calculate the area of this big triangle and add it to the area of these 3 small triangles, they will again get the area of this star. So children are looking at the same problem in different ways and they are trying to arrive at a similar solution, but they are all thinking in a different way. So that is divergent thinking. Reflective thinking means you are reflecting on your existing knowledge or learning or experience and trying to solve a new problem using that previous knowledge or experience. For example, when you gave the children this star and asked them to calculate the area of the star, they were reflecting on their existing knowledge or previous learning where they learned how to calculate the area of a triangle, and they were trying to use the formula and the process that you taught there to solve this new problem. So they were using reflective thinking here to use previous knowledge to solve a new problem. Next, linear thinking. So linear thinking means thinking in a line. So linear thinking is very similar to convergent thinking. In linear thinking, what happens is you follow a specific set of steps or a specific path and try to arrive at a solution. For example, if you have taught children a formula to calculate the area of a triangle and then you give them some triangles to solve or calculate the area of a few triangles, they will use the same steps and the same formula and the same method and arrive at a solution. So they are thinking in a linear manner. Whereas lateral thinking means, like when you gave them this star and asked them to calculate the area of a star and you did not give them any formula for this, they were forced to think about other ways. They were forced to think laterally because they did not have a series of steps that they could follow. They could not think in a linear manner. So they were forced to think laterally and see if there is a option A or type B or a option C using which they can arrive at the answer for this problem. So lateral thinking means it is very similar to divergent thinking. And then critical thinking. So critical thinking means that you are thinking in a critical manner. You are thinking about the pros and the cons, that is the positives and the negatives of your solution and trying to see which is the best way to arrive at an answer. For example, some children might have seen that, okay, there are 5 triangles here and there is one pentagon in the middle. So let me use that method to calculate the area of the star. But then they realize that, but I don't know how to calculate the area of this pentagon. I don't know the formula. So I cannot use that method. Then they will think, okay, if I use this method where there is one triangle in the middle and then there are 3 triangles remaining, so I'll use the triangle formula to calculate. I already know how to use a formula to calculate the area of a triangle, so I'll use that method. That is option B. So in critical thinking, children are looking at all the possible options and trying to find the best one or the most easiest one for them to arrive at a solution. So critical thinking is positives, negatives, pros and cons. Next, let us look at what is the connection between thinking and learning. We already discussed earlier in this video that data, information and experiences are like food. These are the inputs, and thinking is the process through which you are digesting these inputs, this food, and the result of thinking is learning. And learning is nothing but new knowledge, new skills, behavior, attitudes, values and preferences. Which means that if you need to learn, then you have to think. And if you have to think, you have to use the tools of thinking. Attention is the first step and the most important tool. If you are not paying attention, then you will not be able to receive any of the data or information. So you have to pay attention. Next, even if you are paying attention, if you are not motivated, then you will not be able to think, you will not be able to learn. So motivation is also very, very important. And just because you received the data and the information, if you can't store it in your brain, store it in your mind, you will not be able to use it. So memory is also very important. We discussed in one of the previous videos that language is also a tool of thinking. So language is the tool that you use to process this data and information in your mind. So language is also a tool of thinking. And after you have processed it, you have to organize this learning, this new information, new experiences. So organizing the new learning in your mind is also very, very important. Some activities you can't learn by just listening to theory. You have to do it hands-on, like some skills. Right? So hands-on activity is also a tool of thinking. And in some cases, you can learn only if you write and if you practice, such as mathematics. So graphomotor, that is writing, is also a very, very important tool of thinking. In some cases, you have to use some higher order thinking. That is, to convert this data into information and convert the information into learning, you have to use logic and reasoning. So these are also tools of thinking. And finally, emotions. If you are sitting in class, you are trying to pay attention, you have some sort of motivation and your memory is good, but you are feeling very sad and you are emotionally not ready to learn that day. So then you will not be able to learn anything. Therefore, emotions are also very, very important because they can control all the other factors and all the other tools. So these are the different tools of thinking. So to summarize this slide, perception is receiving. So receiving is where you receive this data and information and experiences. Processing is thinking, where you are processing the data, information and experiences, and that results in learning. So learning means you are first storing the new knowledge, skills and behaviors, attitudes and values, preferences in your mind, and you are using them at a later stage whenever you need. So perception is the first steps, processing is the next step, and learning is the third step. Next, let us look at the connection between culture and thinking. Now our culture, our beliefs, values, social practices and background influences our thinking to a large extent. Vygotsky's theory of socio-cultural development also supports this, because he says that social factors and cultural factors, that is the S and the C out of his SCL, affect and influence cognitive development. So they will influence thinking as well. And this fact that culture can influence thinking has to be kept in mind and kept into consideration while designing teaching material and deciding on the methodologies that we'll use in the classroom. Because the teaching material and the methodologies should be culture agnostic. That is, they should avoid any kind of bias. For example, if I am from an urban background and if I am creating a question for an exam, and the question is, which of the following is a source of safe drinking water? Now, the correct answer that I am expecting is tap. But a child from a rural background is taking the same exam and he writes that the source of a safe drinking water is a well. So if I look at it from a urban background, then tap might be the correct answer. If you look at it from a rural background, then well might also be a correct answer. Therefore, when I'm setting questions for an exam, they should not have any bias. I should assume and I should take into consideration that there will be children of different backgrounds and different cultures who will be taking this exam. Therefore, the teaching material, the assessment material and the methodologies that I'll use must not have any kind of bias based on culture. So that is the connection between culture and thinking. We frequently use this term creative thinking in the CDP syllabus. So we have to understand what is this creative thinking all about. Well, creative thinking can result in unique and original ideas or solutions to a problem. We already discussed what is divergent thinking and what is convergent thinking. Divergent thinking means that if you give the same kind of problem to a set of children, then if every child is trying to solve the problem in a different way, they are all looking at it in different angles and they are trying to find a different solution for that, then that is divergent thinking. Typically in a classroom, if you give a standard problem to all the children, then most of the children might use a standard process. Whereas there might be some gifted children who are looking at this problem in a different way, from a different angle. So this is divergent thinking. Convergent thinking means that if you give a set of problems to the children in your classroom, and if all of them are trying to use the same approach or the same methodology to arrive at the same answer, then that is convergent thinking. So typically in a classroom, if you teach a standard formula or an approach to solve a problem, then all the children will try to use it to solve similar problems and arrive at the same solution. So this is convergent thinking. So if there is a child who is looking at a problem in a different way, so if he is thinking in a divergent manner, and if that is positive and useful, then it can be considered as creative thinking. So divergent thinking that is useful and positive can also be called as creative thinking. It doesn't mean that convergent thinking is useless, because convergent thinking is also very, very important. Because if there is only one correct solution to a problem, one correct answer to a problem, and all students are expected to use the same correct process and arrive at the same correct answer, then convergent thinking is very, very important there. Right? Because divergent thinking does not work in all situations. Therefore, both convergent thinking and divergent thinking are very, very important. Divergent thinking, when it is useful and productive, can be called as creative thinking. Now, creativity can be innovation, it can be invention as well. Innovation is where you are using some existing ideas, existing solutions, but you are using them in a different way. For example, there is a farmer who used a scooter engine to create a mini tractor. Now, many people have created mini tractors in the past. Right? They have used motorcycle engines, they have used car engines, and they have used water pump engines to create tractors. So this farmer had used an old scooter engine to create a tractor, a mini tractor or a tiller. So what he has done is innovation. That is, he has used an existing idea, some existing solutions, but he has used them in a different way, in a unique way. So that is innovation. Whereas there is another farmer who invented a scooter which can climb trees, and he uses it for climbing coconut trees and arecanut trees and get the coconuts or the arecanuts from the top of the tree. So this is an invention because there is no such tree climbing scooter anywhere else. So he invented it. Therefore, creativity can be innovation. It can also be an invention. So this is what creative thinking is all about. Next, let us look at the different ways in which we can develop and encourage thinking in children. The first is to provide opportunities for play and problem solving, because play is very, very important for the cognitive development of children. When children play, they learn from the world around them. They learn from other children as well. So play is very, very important for the development of thinking as well. And when children solve problems, it can be mental problems or physical problems such as puzzles. So they are using logic and reasoning, which are the tools for thinking. So problem solving is also very, very important. We should inculcate reading habits in children, because when children learn to enjoy reading, then they can absorb information from various sources around them, not only books, but so much of knowledge is available online. So reading is also a habit that we should encourage. When children are trying to solve a problem or deal with a situation, then as parents or as teachers, we would have a tendency to try and jump and intervene immediately. So we should consciously make an effort not to intervene or help immediately. We should pause and wait and let children deal with the situation themselves, handle the situation themselves. So pause and wait. Next, ask open-ended questions, because if a question has more than one correct answer, then you are encouraging the children to think in different ways. You are encouraging creativity and divergent thought. So ask open-ended questions. When children are learning, they would have a lot of questions, and children are anyways naturally curious as well. So encourage children to ask questions and answer them patiently. You also have to give some responsibility to children, because when children get some responsibility of completing a task on a daily basis, or they get responsibility to doing something on a daily basis, then they tend to develop a sense of maturity. They develop a sense of discipline, and through these activities, they also learn how to think and how to complete tasks. So giving responsibility is also very, very important. And when children are trying to solve problems or deal with any situations, we have to help them develop hypotheses, and we have to train them or teach them how to use logic and how to use the different problem solving steps that are available to us. So help children understand how they can approach problems and what are the steps that they can use to solve problems, and teach them to use logic and reasoning. And we have to encourage divergent or out of the box thinking, because in a typical classroom, the teacher might expect all the children will learn in a similar way, all the children will give the same correct answer. But the teacher has to consciously remember that there will be some children who might be looking at the same problem in a different way. So just because they are giving a different kind of an answer, or they are looking at the problem in a different way, they should not be discouraged, right? Teachers should make a conscious effort to encourage children to think in a divergent manner, that is out of the box thinking. And teaching the art of social learning is also very, very important, because a lot of learning happens through social interactions. It can be interactions with other students, it can be interactions with other community members, or it can be interactions through the media. So social learning is also very, very important, and children should be trained to use social learning for their own development. Therefore, these are some of the ways in which we can develop and encourage thinking in children. Why children fail in school? That is the next topic. Like Gabbar Singh says, "Jo dar gaya, wo fail ho gaya." So fear and anxiety are probably the most important reason why children fail in school. This fear and anxiety can be caused due to various reasons, such as unnecessarily high pressure from the family or from the teachers, or very high expectations from the students which they are unable to meet. So they are afraid and they get anxious, and they are not able to reach up to their potential. So they fail in school. Then there can be boredom. If the teaching methodology is not good, if the material that is provided is not interesting enough, then children tend to get bored. And in case of creative, talented or gifted children, if they are not kept challenged and interested in the classroom by the teachers, then such children will get bored very easily. And if children are bored, they are not paying attention, they are not learning anything in the class, and that leads to failure. There can also be confusion. In case of teacher-centric teaching methodologies or subject-centric methodologies, the focus is on completing the syllabus, or the teacher is deciding what needs to be taught at what pace. So if children are not strong with their basics, and if they are forced to learn the next level concepts, or they are forced to learn the next level ideas or the next level topics, then they get confused because their foundation is not strong enough. And this confusion can lead to fear or anxiety or boredom, and that leads to failure in school. Then there can be lack of motivation as well for various reasons. If children are not motivated to learn, then they will not participate in the activities in the classroom, they will not pay attention in the classroom, and that can lead to failure. Children are very easily influenced by others, especially classmates and friends. So social influence can also be a reason for failure. There might be some children who are good or who can do well academically, but they are in bad company. And if they are bunking classes, if they are getting into mischievous activities and they are not paying attention in the class, then that leads to failure. So social influence is also a very, very important factor. Children can also be having interpersonal issues at home, or they might have interpersonal issues and they might not be getting along with the other students or with the teacher. And that interpersonal issues can lead to lack of motivation, fear, anxiety, and lead to failure in school. Then we'll talk about physical and learning disabilities. If such disabilities are not detected and addressed earlier on, they can also lead to failure in school. There were some studies which were conducted by some medical institutes which showed that up to 4.5% of children in rural areas and more than 5% of the children in urban areas has eye issues. They had short sight or astigmatism or some other eye issues which could be corrected. However, because of lack of awareness or because they did not get the proper medical checkup at the right time, the issues were not detected, which means that children were having some difficulties in the classroom. They were not able to focus on the textbooks, they were not able to pay attention to what is happening on the board, and that was leading to failure in school. So such physical issues have to be detected and addressed earlier on. Then children could be having various health issues, nutrition issues. So such health issues can lead to lack of motivation and fear and anxiety and lead to failure in school. Then children can be having some family issues as well. For example, children might have some family financial issues, or parents are going through a divorce, or any such issues which cause children to not have a happy family or a stable family, which in turn leads to lack of motivation or boredom or fear and anxiety, which leads to failure. So family issues also play a very, very important factor in the learning of children or the lack of learning in children. And then we'll talk about distractions. Children these days have a lot of distractions. It can be social media, it can be online games. And if children are paying more attention to social media and games and not paying enough attention in the classroom, if they are always distracted, then they are not able to understand what is happening in the classroom, and that can lead to failure in school. So these are all some of the important reasons why children fail in school. Next, let us look at how can we help children succeed in school. Now, we have already discussed what are the reasons due to which children fail in school. So if we know the reasons as to why children fail in school, then we should be able to address those reasons and help the children succeed in school. So the first step is to identify the issue, because every child is different, every learner is different, which means that the reasons for failure can also be different for each child. So we have to make a conscious effort to identify the specific reason for failure for every child, and only then we'll be able to address it and fix it. So identifying the issues is the first step. When it comes to the success or the failure of children in the classroom, teachers are probably the most important factor. So which means that teachers have to be trained and sensitized to identify the reasons for why children are failing in school and help them appropriately. So training and sensitizing teachers is a very important step. Parents are also very, very important, especially if the reasons for failure are reasons like family issues, or if there is unnecessary pressure from the families or the parents, which is leading to fear and anxiety. So involving parents is also very important in the success or failure of children in school. Like we discussed, if the teaching methodology that is being used is subject-centric or teacher-centric, it means that there is more attention being given to completing the syllabus, or the teacher is deciding what needs to be taught at what speed, and the children are being ignored. So this might be a reason for failure. Whatever teaching methodologies, whatever material is being used in the classroom must be child-centric. Only then we'll be able to help children succeed. So child-centric teaching methodologies and material are also very, very important. And whatever learning is happening in the classroom must be meaningful and contextual. That is, the children should be able to relate what they are learning in the classroom to what they are experiencing in real life and what they are seeing in the day-to-day life. So meaningful and contextual learning will help children succeed in school and succeed in life as well. And plus, we have to remember that it is not just the teacher, the parents and the school which can help children wherever required. There are other resources as well. There might be some government programs, there might be some NGOs which can help, there can be some online programs which can help. So wherever we need some help and support for children, we should be able to leverage and use any resources that are available to us. So any resource that is available in the school, with the teachers, with the parents or outside should be used to help children succeed in school. So the simplest answer to this entire topic is, since we know the reasons for failure, we should be able to address each of these individual reasons for failure, and that's the way we can help children succeed in school. Let us now talk about Thorndike and the theory of connectionism and Thorndike's laws of learning. Now, sometimes you might see questions about laws of learning. Sometimes you will see questions about connectionism. So that is the reason why I have included this in this video. And these are very simple concepts, and these laws are also very simple, so you'll be able to understand it very easily. So connectionism is a theory that says that learning consists of connections between stimuli and responses. So the first time that I saw a candle, I must have been attracted by the flame and I must have put my finger in the flame, and I realized that it causes pain. So I learned the connection between the stimulus, that is the candle flame, and the response, that is the pain that I get. So that is when learning happened, that I should not put my finger in the flame. The first time that I ate ice cream, I realized that ice cream gives me pleasure. So I learned the connection between the stimuli and the response or the pleasure that I get. So again, learning happened. By trial and error, animals identify connections between a stimulus and a satisfying result. These connections are strengthened because of the pleasure they bring. So the first time that I ate ice cream, it gave me pleasure. So I discovered that by trial and error. The next time I decided to try vanilla, and I realized that I like vanilla better than butterscotch. So I discovered that by trial and error, and I continue to do that because of the satisfying result. The third time I might have accidentally tried chocolate flavor, and I realized that among all the flavors, chocolate gives me the maximum amount of pleasure, the maximum amount of satisfaction. So I keep repeating the same thing again and again. So the connection between chocolate ice cream and the pleasure that I get has been strengthened because of the pleasure that I get from that specific flavor. So connectionism, simple theory, it is a connection between stimuli and response. So it can be a positive response or a negative response, but as long as I'm getting a satisfying result, then I learn the connection between that stimulus and that response. And by trial and error, I will naturally discover what is the stimulus that gives me the maximum amount of pleasure or the most satisfying result. And I keep repeating it, and that strengthens the connection between that stimuli and response. Next, let us talk about Thorndike's laws of learning. So these laws can be divided into main laws and subordinate laws. These main laws are very, very simple. The first law says law of readiness. It says that there has to be a readiness to learn. If the child is not ready to learn, if the child is not motivated, then learning will not happen. So law of readiness is nothing but common sense. Then there is law of exercise. It says that whatever has been learned, regular exercise and practice will strengthen that learning. Obviously, if I learn something and if I don't practice it, I'll forget it. If I regularly exercise that learning and if I practice that, then it will strengthen my learning. So this is again common sense. Then there is law of effect. It says that learning happens if the effect is satisfying. Now, in case of a chocolate ice cream, I realized that chocolate gives me maximum amount of pleasure, and that's when I learned the connection between that stimuli and that response. So that's when learning happened. In case of a candle flame, when I put my finger in the candle, then I realized it causes pain. So the most satisfying result is when I see a flame, I should not put my finger in the flame. So that negative response that I'm giving gives me the most satisfying result. Right? Therefore, I learned that I should not put my finger in the candle flame. So that's how law of effect happens, that learning happens if the effect is satisfying. So these are the concepts of connectionism and the laws of learning. And finally, let us talk about Thorndike's subordinate laws of learning. These are not very important, but you should still be aware of them. And they are very simple laws which you can easily understand. Law of multiple responses says that a learner may try multiple responses till a positive outcome is reached. For example, if I'm thirsty and I'm in front of a fruit juice shop, then I might try multiple types of fruit juices till I find that fruit juice which gives me the maximum amount of pleasure. Right? So I'm looking for the most positive outcome here, for which I'm trying multiple responses. Law of set or attitude says that the attitude or a goal set by the learner acts as a motivation by itself. For example, a sports person might set a goal for himself or herself that I have to score a century in a particular match. So that itself acts as a motivation for the way the person will play in that match. A student might set a goal for himself or herself that I need to get a first rank in the final exam. And that itself acts as a motivation for the child to study. Law of prepotency of element says that the potent elements will get a higher response. So the most potent element will get the highest response. So potent element means a strong stimuli. So the strongest stimuli will get the maximum response. For example, I went to a friend's house. I was sleeping in a room, and I saw one small cockroach walking along the corner of the room. It was a stimulus, right? But it was not strong enough for me to respond to it. So I chose to ignore the cockroach. But there were also some mosquitoes in the room, and these mosquitoes were biting me. So the mosquitoes were a more potent stimulus. Therefore, I chose to get up and kill the mosquitoes before I went back to sleep. So a more potent element or a more potent stimulus or a stronger stimulus will get a stronger or a higher response. Law of response by analogy means that learners will first use an older positive experience even in a new situation. I go to my neighbor's house. He has a golden retriever dog, and the dog is very, very friendly. So over a period of time, I have realized that this dog is very friendly. So golden retrievers must be very friendly. Therefore, whenever I see a golden retriever anywhere outside, I think that that dog will be friendly because I associate golden retrievers as a breed with friendly dogs. Law of associative shifting says that the stimulus that gets a response can be slowly shifted. This can be explained using Pavlov's experiment. There was a dog, and whenever the dog was shown any meat or food, it would salivate, it would produce saliva. But the same dog would not respond or react when a bell was rung in front of it because it was not associating this bell with anything. So it was not responding to the stimulus. Next, whenever they were giving any food to the dog, they started ringing the bell as well. So the dog would salivate. So initially, it was salivating only because of the food, but then it slowly started associating the bell also with food. So finally, they reached a stage where just because the bell was rung, the dog would produce saliva or salivate. So which means that the stimulus that gets the response was slowly shifted from this food or meat to the bell. So that is the law of associative shifting. Let us now look at some sample questions from previous question papers. This question is asking us, a young child responds to a new situation on the basis of the response made by him or her in a similar situation in the past. This is related to which of the following? Remember, I told you that when I go to my neighbor's house, I see a golden retriever, and because it is a friendly dog, I start associating that breed with friendly dogs. And whenever I see a golden retriever anywhere outside, right, I immediately think that this is a very friendly dog. And that is the law of analogy of learning. Right? So the correct answer is law of analogy of learning. When a child fails, it means which of the following? We discussed that there are various reasons for children to fail in school. Right? And the child is not fit for studies. That is not the correct answer because the child still has to study, right? So you cannot just say that the child is unfit because the child has failed. Right? You have to figure out why has the child failed. You have to find the reason and you have to fix that particular problem or address that particular situation. The child has not memorized the answers properly. Now, memorization, that is rote memorization, is not the correct way to learn. And even if the child has not memorized the answer, the child should have understood the answer. Right? So here, memorization is not important. Therefore, this cannot be the correct answer. The child should have taken private tuition. Now, everybody can't afford private tuition. So the child should be learning in school and not in private tuition. If this was the case, then all children would just be going to private tuition and nobody would go to school. Right? So this is an incorrect option. Therefore, we are left with one option, which is the last one. The system has failed. We looked at all the different reasons as to why children fail in school. And all of those reasons can be addressed. They can be fixed. So, if a child has failed, it means that the child has failed because of one of those reasons for failures, and the system has not worked properly in fixing or addressing that issue. Therefore, it is the system that has failed, not the child. So, this is the correct answer. If a student is getting consistently lower grades in school, her parents can be advised to help her by doing which of the following? Now, if a student is getting consistently lower grades or low marks in school, what is the first thing that you should be doing? you should first try to understand what is the root cause. Why is the child getting lower grades? Why is the child getting less marks? So to understand that better, the parents have to work in close association with the teacher. Right? And when they work with the teacher, when they discuss things with the teacher, right, then they'll be able to understand what is the real reason behind these lower grades and how can they help the child. Only after doing this, if the child is getting distracted, then you can withhold mobile phones, movies and comics. Or if the child is not aware of the implication of not studying, then you can narrate the hardships of those who do not possess proper education. That is, you can give the children some gyan. Or if the child is not doing homework or not doing any assignments properly, then you can force her to work harder at home. So you can do the other options only if you know what is the real reason behind the child's lower grades. And to do that, you have to work in close association with the teacher. So that is the correct answer and the best answer here. When children learn a concept and use it, then practice helps in reducing the errors committed. This idea was given by who among the following? You should recollect that we discussed about Thorndike's main laws of learning. In that, there was the second law, that is the law of exercise, which said that regular exercise or practice strengthens learning. So, regular exercise or practice will reduce the errors committed by the children. Therefore, it was Thorndike, E.L. Thorndike, who suggested that practice helps in reducing the errors committed. So, option 1 is the correct answer. Which of the following statements about students' failure in school are correct? Students belonging to certain castes and communities fail since they do not have the ability. This is a completely incorrect statement because caste and community does not have any sort of a implication on learning. All children have the same kind of capabilities. They should get the correct facilities and the support. Then all children, irrespective of caste, community or religion, all children can perform equally well in school. So this statement is incorrect. Students fail in school because appropriate rewards are not offered for their learning. Now, children should not get rewards for everything, right? There should be some amount of motivation as well. In some situations, you should offer them some rewards, but children should also have their own motivation to learn. So just because you are not giving any rewards, it doesn't mean that children will fail in school. So this statement is incorrect. Students fail because teaching is not done in a manner which is meaningful for them. We discussed that for children to succeed in school, the teaching should be contextual and meaningful. That is, whatever is being taught in the school, children should be able to associate it with what is happening in their real life, in their everyday life. So this is talking about meaningful and contextual learning. So this is a correct statement. Next, students fail because school system does not cater to individual child's needs and interests. We discussed that every child is different. Every child's learning requirements are different. So the school should try to cater to the needs of all the students because all the students, all the learners, all the children are different. Therefore, if the school is just trying to use one standard methodology for everybody, then some children may fail. So students fail because school system does not cater to individual child's needs and interests. This is also a correct statement, which means that 3 and 4 are correct. So 3 and 4. This is the correct answer. And with that, we come to the end of this video. If you have any questions or feedback, please put them in the comment section below. And I will see you again very soon in the next part of this video series. Till then, take care, stay safe.